This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Gaza, Israeli attacks have killed at least 52 Palestinians since dawn after a wave of strikes that killed 28 people on New Year's Day, including women and children. Israeli air attacks struck northern Gaza's Jabalia, the central Barej refugee camp, Gaza City, and a tent camp sheltering displaced families in Al-Mawasi in southern Khan Yunis, in an area designated by Israel as a so-called humanitarian zone. This comes as a seventh infant in Gaza has died from hypothermia, while displaced people and tents struggle to keep warm amidst days of heavy rain.
We are living here in the cold, in a state of hunger and thirst, lacking clothes, blankets, and mattresses. The rain pours on us all night while the tarps leak, and no one acknowledges us. Last year, we lived in Rafah. Before that, we were in Beit Lahia. Then we moved to Rafah, and from Rafah, we came to Khan Yunis. We still don't know what our fate is or where we will be relocated next.
New data show Gaza's population has fallen by 6% since the start of Israel's assault in October of 2023. The Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics estimates about 100,000 people have left Gaza, while more than 55,000 have been killed by Israeli attacks or are missing and presumed dead. In the occupied West Bank, the Palestinian Authority says it's temporarily halted the Al Jazeera TV network from operating or broadcasting in the territory, citing what it called inciting material and reports that were deceiving and stirring strife. This follows Al Jazeera's critical coverage of the Fatah faction, which dominates the PA, as well as recent deadly clashes between Palestinian security forces and armed Palestinian groups. Al Jazeera condemned the move to censor its coverage as, quote, nothing but an attempt to dissuade the channel from covering the rapidly escalating events, they said. Here in the United States, President Biden says the man who drove a pickup truck into throngs of New Year's revelers in New Orleans early Wednesday had posted videos to social media hours earlier pledging allegiance to the militant group ISIS. The attack killed 15 people and wounded at least 35 others, carving a path of destruction down Bourbon Street before the assailant was killed in a firefight with police officers. President-elect Trump responded on social media, writing, "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true," Trump wrote. However, President Biden revealed the suspect is a 42-year-old U.S. citizen from Texas named Shamsuddin Jabbar, who was born in Texas.
He served in the United States Army on active duty for many years. He also served in the Army Reserve until a few years ago. The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill.
The annual college football game hosted at the nearby Superdome, the Sugar Bowl, was delayed for 24 hours following the attack. The FBI said it found an explosive device in the Ford F-150 pickup truck used by the suspect. Shamsuddin Jabbar had 2 prior criminal offenses, one in 2002 for theft and another in 2005 for driving with an invalid license. Jabbar obtained a real estate license in 2019. The following year, he posted a video to YouTube introducing himself as a professional real estate agent. Court documents showed Jabbar struggled with his finances. In 2020, his second wife, his ex-wife, was granted a restraining order forbidding Jabbar from sending threatening messages or causing bodily injury to his spouse or their child. The Sugar Dome has now been delayed until Thursday. In Nevada, 1 person was found dead and 7 others injured Wednesday morning when a Tesla Cybertruck filled with fuel canisters and fireworks exploded outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. Surveillance video shows the vehicle parking directly in front of the hotel before suddenly erupting in flames moments later. The blast sent up a huge column of smoke, but caused only minor damage to the hotel. The FBI said it was investigating whether the incident was an act of terrorism and whether it might be connected to the attack in New Orleans earlier Wednesday. The Cybertruck was rented in Colorado by someone using the same car rental app used by the New Orleans assailant. But so far, officials have not publicly identified the body found inside the vehicle and have not determined whether the explosion was intentional. Meanwhile, the FBI says it collected more than 150 pipe bombs during a December raid on a 20-acre property in eastern Virginia. It was the largest cache of homemade explosives ever found by the agency. Federal prosecutors have described the accused bomb maker, 36-year-old Brad Spofford, as an anti-government extremist who used a photo of President Joe Biden for target practice as he pursued a sniper qualification. The Pentagon says it launched a wave of airstrikes on Sana'a and other parts of Yemen on Tuesday. U.S. Central Command says it targeted Houthi command and weapons production facilities. The attacks came just after Israel bombed the Yemeni port city of Hodeidah and the main airport in Sana'a, killing at least 6 people. A Houthi spokesperson said Wednesday that the Houthis would continue attacking aimed at ending Israel's assault on Gaza.
The
Yemeni armed forces affirmed their continued operations in support of Gaza, and these operations will not stop until the aggression on Gaza is stopped and the siege is lifted.
In Ukraine, 2 people were killed and 6 others wounded Wednesday as Russia's military began the new year with fresh airstrikes on the capital, Kyiv. The attacks came as the Russian fossil fuel giant Gazprom said it had halted the flow of gas to Europe via pipelines crossing Ukraine. Until January 1st, Kyiv had allowed Russian oil and gas to cross Ukrainian territory for decades, even after Russia's 2022 invasion, providing a major source of revenue to both Ukraine and Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky hailed the halt of the Russian gas shipments as one of Moscow's biggest defeats. Meanwhile, Russia says about 10,000 volunteers have joined efforts to contain a massive oil spill from 2 tankers in the Kerch Strait near the Ukrainian territory of Crimea, which Russia invaded and annexed in 2014. Since mid-December, the storm-stricken tankers have spilled 200,000 tons of heavy fuel oil, fouling dozens of miles of shoreline. So far, Russia says it's removed more than 70,000 tons of contaminated sand and soil. The Honduran President Xiomara Castro has warned she might seek to cancel military cooperation with the United States if President-elect Trump makes good on his promises of mass deportations, denial of asylum claims, and family separations at the U.S.-Mexico border. Castro made the warning in a New Year's Day message in which she called for constructive dialogue with the incoming administration.
Faced with a hostile attitude of mass expulsion of our brothers, we would have to consider a change in our policies of cooperation with the United States, especially in the military arena, where, without paying a cent for decades, they maintain military bases in our territory, which in this case would lose all reason to exist in Honduras.
The president of the Ivory Coast, or Côte d'Ivoire, says he's asked France to withdraw its troops from the West African country. Ivory Coast officially gained independence from French colonial rule in 1960, but France has maintained a military presence for decades, with some 600 soldiers remaining in the country when President Alassane Ouattara announced they would have to depart.
My dear compatriots, dear brothers and sisters, we can be proud of our army, whose modernization is now a reality. It is within this framework that we have decided on the coordinated and organized withdrawal of French forces from Côte d'Ivoire.
This follows the expulsion of French troops from several other African nations in recent months: Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Senegal, and Chad. Of Africa's former French colonies, only Djibouti and Gabon will continue to host French forces. South Korea's impeached former president has pledged to fight until the end as he resists a warrant for his arrest over his short-lived declaration of martial law in December. On Tuesday, a court in Seoul ordered Yoon Suk-yeol to be detained and for his office and residence to be searched. So far, Yoon's Presidential Security Service has blocked investigators' access amidst objections by his lawyers. Investigators have until January 6 to execute their search warrant, but can request an extension. If convicted of leading a rebellion, Yoon faces life in prison or the death penalty in South Korea. In more news from South Korea, police have raided the offices of Jeju Air as officials probe the cause of the flight that crashed at Won International Airport on Sunday, killing 179 people. Officials say a flight data recorder recovered from the wreckage of the Boeing 737-800 aircraft was damaged and will have to be sent to the United States for analysis by the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, and Boeing. And North Carolina's outgoing Democratic Governor Roy Cooper has commuted the sentences of 15 people on death row to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Governor Cooper announced the commutations Tuesday as one of his final acts as governor before Democratic Governor-elect Josh Stein took the oath of office on New Year's Day. The ACLU of North Carolina welcomed the commutations, writing, quote, "We have long known that the death penalty in North Carolina is racially based, unjust, and immoral, and the governor's actions today pave the way for our state to move towards a new era of justice," unquote. The ACLU added, with 121 people still on death row in our state, we know there is much more work to be done. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. When we come back, we begin our first live show of the new year in Gaza, where we speak with Palestinian journalist Shrouk Allah. She was recently honored by the Committee to Protect Journalists. Stay with us.
I long to be lazy. I want to be lazy. I long to be out in the sun with no work to be done under that awning they call the sky, stretching and yawning, and let the silly old world go by. Want a piece to the deep tangled wildwood, counting sheep till I sleep like a child would, and with a great big valise full of books to read when it's peaceful, till it's time, being lazy.
That's Lazy by the Georgians in 1924, one of the many recordings, movies, and books entering the commons at the start of this new year on what's been dubbed Public Domain Day in the United States. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.